about listening, it's about thinking, observing, and imagining what you would do if you were the journalist. So before we dive in, let me just make sure everything's working. If you can hear me clearly, can you just drop a text if you can hear me? Okay, thank you. Awesome. Now, here's what's about. I'm so sorry. Uh, so here's what today is about. It's gonna be fun, real, and it's your chance to speak up about something that matters to you. Imagine you walk into school one morning and something feels off. Maybe the school fans aren't working, or maybe it's just the canteen food that just tastes like last week's leftover. And then suddenly it clicks. And ask yourself, why is no one talking about this? And that's the moment when the journalist inside you wakes up. Because, I'm so sorry, because being a journalist doesn't mean wearing a suit and holding a microphone. It means noticing the things others ignore, asking questions no one else dares to ask. And this week, you get the chance to be that journalist. So I have some questions for you guys. So, what is the one issue in your school or maybe in your neighborhood that you think deserves attention? It could be big, small, funny, serious, anything that made you go, hey, that's not right. Anyone wants to share? Some questions for you guys. What is the one issue in your school or maybe in your neighborhood that you think deserves attention? No one? No one wants to share anything? No worries. Okay, I have one more question for everyone actually. So, if you had your own news channel, what would you call it? It can be something funny, something fierce. I think, like, if I had my own news channel, it would be named something like Zero Homework News. It would be funny, I guess. No, nobody wants to share anything? No worries. Now that I've got your brain buzzing, imagining headlines, spotting stories, and thinking like a real reporter, I know what you're all wondering. What are we exactly going to do with all these ideas? Well, I'm not the one revealing that. We have someone very special with us today who's going to walk you through all the activities, what expected from you, and why your voice truly matters. It's a pleasure to introduce our mentor today. Ms. Meenakshi heads the edit desk at edskExpress and has over 20 years of experience in journalism, starting her career with Reuters and later working with Hindustan Times, where she led editorial teams. She also holds an MPhil in ancient history from JNU. She brings a wealth of experience in storytelling, writing, and guiding young voices, just like yours. And trust me, you're gonna enjoy every bit of what she has to share. So, without any further delay, I would like Meenakshi ma'am to take over.
Hi everyone, thank you Shivangi for those kind words. As Shivangi said, I'm Meenakshi and I'm here to answer your questions mostly and take you through what we do in a newsroom, or how we write a story or a copy as we call them, and how, since I basically work with the online desk, that means a digital desk of the Indian Express. I would like to take you through how we deal with everyday news cycle and what we do at the desk. I would encourage everyone here who's joining in, especially the young ones, to ask more so that I can take up your queries more and more and make it more interactive rather than me just going about what I do. I would like your perspective more than anyone else's. So how many of you are here? If you could just raise your hands. Okay, I got one. Anyone else? Is there anyone else, Shivangi? A
I
student
guess
who's
they're joining from the YouTube as well, ma'am.
okay. All right. What I would like to start with is what I do. I edit a copy and I head the editorial desk at the online team. So reporters out in the field, they send us all their copies. And then we take a look at the headline. That's the first thing. Then what we call is a strap that comes as something that gives away what we are trying to go in further. Then comes the body of the story. We have lead, we have a nut graph, we have context paragraphs, we have quotes. Basically, all these things make up a particular copy. So there are different types of copies. There are what we call spot copies. There are feature copies. There are analysis copies. There's opinion. There are opinion copies. Then there are wrap-ups which about of a thing that has been happening throughout the day and is continuing. And at the end of the day, when maybe it is almost over, or when we want to give the final touch to the copy, we call it a wrap. It has the day's events as it has been, as they have been happening. So let me now go into the main part of a copy, that is the headline. So the headline is what grabs a reader's attention. You are promising something that you're going to provide information about. So what happens is you have to have a headline which catches a person's eye, which tells things in a very, very concise manner, and at the same time asks the reader to jump into the copy, or into the, as others call, a story. So headlines can be of many types. Headlines can be a straightforward headline. For example, let's talk about Delhi weather, Delhi and NCR weather. Since it's so hot, people really look forward to whether it's going to rain or whether the temperatures are going to go down, etc. So that's a spot copy. So we would like to tell readers that, you know, the Weather Bureau forecasts rain, thunderstorm during the day, temperature likely to come down. So that's the kind of headline for a spot copy that we give. Then there are copies, for example, there are the feature copies where it's a longer form where we talk about a specific thing. For example, a person is involved in a specific kind of painting or a handicraft. So we would give it an interesting turn rather than, you know, just stating the facts. We would try and bring in a bit of a quote from that person and then make it a bit more interesting than a spot copy headline. Then we come to the what we call the lead, or the introduction, or the first paragraph of the copy. That should have, as a spot copy, for example, if I talk about a spot copy, that would have your 5 W's and an H, and it has been followed for many, many years now, and it should be your main background of what you're going to talk about. So it's who, when, where, what, and why, and how. The single H that I was talking about. So your lead should have all those things so that the reader knows that why are they even reading your copy. So it should have every aspect of these 5 W's and an H. Then you give the context, allowing the reader more into your copy, saying, why are we reporting this? What is the current situation? Then you bring in a quote. For example, there's been, it's going to rain. Like I gave an example of a weather copy. So if it's going to rain, we will talk to an Indian Meteorological Department's scientist who would tell us what is expected in the day or, throughout the day. So that is something which is another must in a copy. Then we go into further describing what is going to change. For example, if it was, let's say 45 degrees yesterday, what it is going to be like today. So you build up that copy and you bring in maybe a forecast for tomorrow as well. So that is how a structure of a copy goes. These are the basic points I can think of right now. If anyone has any question.
Ma'am, actually, I had one question.
Sure, Nanlin.
Okay, so ma'am, you talked about the 5W1H. So I wanted to ask you that sometimes in stories, we need to prioritize some of the W's over the other. So ma'am, how do we go about that procedure? Because considering sometimes it's not possible to include all the W's in our story. So ma'am, how do you prioritize those?
Good question, Lalit. So, for example, we are reporting about President Murmu saying something. So, here, who is the most important person here as the head of the state, right? So, we begin with President Draupadi Murmu said on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, and then go on to say what exactly she was dealing with, right? So, here, who will take priority over other W's?
Okay.
Right? Did I answer your question?
Yes, right.
Okay.
I have a question as well.
Sure.
Do you think students today can become good journalists even before college?
Of course, when my generation was growing up, we had very little access to very little information other than television, newspaper, and radio, right? Now, students, as I can see, have more access. There are podcasts, there are videos, there are so many other channels, so many other ways to access information. So I think they have a wealth of knowledge which they can use even before they try and take up a journalism course or try and decide to become a journalist, right? For example, there are school newspapers as well where many students do bring in their copies or their articles, and they are more aware than let's say even 10 years ago. So yeah, they have that background which probably kids didn't have a decade ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I think we have questions coming in from YouTube as well, but before that, we have a lot of students here who have raised their hands. Does anyone here wish to ask a question? काफी लोगों ने अपने हैंड रेज करे हुए हैं. आप में से किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछना है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं.
I can see someone called Ayush who has raised their hand.
Kunal, Abhishek, Ayush, Tushar. आप में से किसी को कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछना है, आप लोग अपने हैंड रेज करें.
Please go ahead if you have any question.
Or you can even type.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can type it in the chat box. Ma'am, by the time they must be writing the questions, we'll pick a few from YouTube itself.
Sure.
So we have one from Ayush from Delhi. He's asking that like considering journalism is basically a humanities field, so how would you try to clarify on the stigma that goes around regarding what to pursue in your 11th and 12th and in your future as well, considering he's written, considering sciences has been prioritized, still continues to be prioritized in our country over humanities. I really like this question as a humanities student.
Yes, yes. That's a very, very interesting and a very topical question, Ayush. I would like to say that, yeah, there's a perception that humanities, people do not take up humanities more and more, and they go in for sciences, yes. But if you have a specialization in a particular background, be it humanities, sciences, commerce, it helps you develop a certain kind of background, certain kind of perspective, I would rather say, to handle certain things. See, if you will be, I don't have any journalism degree. I went straight from my, after my MPhil, I straight on went to a journalism job, but I learned on the job. So that's how, that's one way one can do it, irrespective of whether they have sciences, humanities, or commerce. I had humanities all through. I was an art student, history particularly. But I know of other journalists who have done their MBAs, who are, one of my colleagues at Reuters, he had an engineering degree, and he was a commodities, as far as I remember, a commodities journalist. So he was dealing with something entirely different from what he had studied as in his graduation, while doing his graduation. So it's all up to a person to leverage their knowledge, their background. You can bring in a fresh perspective. You can think about situations in a different way. You can add a line in your report about how a particular thing may, if you have, let's say, a physics background, or a geography background, or anything for that matter, you can bring in a fresh perspective. You can add more value to a copy or to your journalism. So it doesn't matter which subjects you choose in your graduation and then decide to take up journalism. I know so many people that did not have sciences or anything, sciences and have taken up journalism.
So I hope that answers. Yeah, I would like to add to that. I personally feel like humanities offers you like a broader spectrum of things that you can explore than sciences. Even sciences, you're very restrained in your field. Okay, engineer or doctor. Zada you go for research or anything. Not that those fields are not good, no doubt. But of course, with humanities, you have an ocean to explore, I would say. So with that, we have a question from Gautam from Chennai. Gautam is asking that, ma'am, as a journalist, what are your thoughts on there being no particular law regarding the protection and the freedom of journalists as compared to other countries?
I would beg to differ a bit. See, the thing is that unless you are reporting facts, your rights are protected. I would not like to go further than this, because there are certain laws, there are certain rights which are guaranteed in the Constitution, which help each and every person, even as journalists. We are protected by those laws.
Yes, definitely. We have Article 19, and so it, 19A is there. All right, so ma'am, we'll pick up a few more questions.
Sure.
Okay, this is from this by Sia from Maharashtra. She's asking, do you have a favorite headline you've ever written or like you've seen?
Oh my God, that's an interesting and a difficult question at the same time. See, Sia, I have, I don't know how many copies I have edited. Yeah, when I was at Reuters, I interviewed Sharmila, the woman from Manipur who was on fast for years and years. Let me try and fish out if that headline is still. Give me a moment, please. I'll just try and fish that headline out, okay?
Okay, so till the time ma'am is looking for the headline, the rest of you in the meeting, apart from the YouTube viewers, you can send in your questions through chat box. या फिर आप अभी पूछ सकते हो. Feel free to ask any question. Ma'am is here to answer your queries.
Yeah, sure, please. Anything that has come, Nalin?
Ma'am, we have a few more questions. You can take your time with the headline that you're looking for.
I can't seem to find it. So never mind. What I focused on was what she said. She told me that day from the hospital bed how she had been fighting it for the states' rights, etc. So that kind of was one of my first bylines. Bylines is when you get your name under a particular copy. So I had just started and I was really proud that I could interview her and I could get my copy published on Reuters.
Okay, definitely. That is, feeling. So, ma'am, we have
There's
a
a question
in the chat box.
Yeah, what from Alish, if I may call you that, what precautions do you take to ensure your collected information is accurate? This is an amazing question, which is very, very important in a copy. So when we are gathering information, we talk to both sides. For example, there's been some kind of altercation or some kind of fight between two groups. And the police are involved in that particular incident. So we report, for example, we report that I today edited a copy which came from Ghaziabad. Please pardon me because it's a bit on the violent side. There was this particular group, and out of that, one person was shot dead by another rival group over some issue that they had. So in this particular copy, what I would, as an editor, look for the reporter to do is talk to the person who has made those allegations, talk to the police, what happened, and talk to the person who has been accused of that particular crime. So that's how you balance your copy. And balancing copies are very, very important. We should have all perspectives, all people involved that you're reporting about to have their views, what they have to say. So, and accuracy is something which is important in all copies. So you have to kind of bring in all perspectives so that your copy is not biased, your copy is balanced. You have spoken with everyone around who you are reporting about. Did I answer your question, Alish?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm glad I did. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, we have a few more questions. All right. So, this is, okay. So the question is, what's the most interesting or unexpected story you've ever worked on? It's by Shaurya from Noida.
Hi, Shaurya. Oh, again. See, you know, in a newsroom, we often say that you shouldn't say that, oh, it's a boring day. So the day we say that, something or the other happens. And newsrooms thrive on things to happen. It's not to say that, you know, we want something bad to happen or we want something something not very tasteful to happen. But you know, in a newsroom, we always look for copies that can grab a reader by their eyeballs and make them read a particular copy. So for example, I remember, again I'll give you an anecdote. I remember you guys must have been, I don't know, maybe not even born then. This was 2008, and I had just finished my shift and I was sitting in CP. I was meeting a friend. So all of a sudden we could hear a sound, and within like 5 minutes I could know that there has been a bomb blast. And I went back to my office. At that point of time, the Reuters office was on Barakamba Road, and I was in Statesman House. If you guys know the geography, CP's geography, the buildings are side by side. So I left the Statesman building and went back to my office building. And meanwhile, it was, of course, there were so many people around, the police had come, etc. And that particular day, I got to know how newsrooms function, and they function like this, how reporters quickly gather information. And within maybe half an hour, we got to know that there were serial bombings across the city. So when I came back, I had to collate all information that was trickling in. Sometimes, when you get information, it's not, the information might not be right at that particular time because there are so many conflicting things coming in. So what we try then and do is, again, corroborate with various people who are on the scene, senior officials, witnesses, maybe victims. So that's how, you gather your senses and see that, how you have to put together information so that the people would know that what has happened, how it has happened, what's happening now after that particular incident. So that's how we go about it. If I could answer your question, Shaurya.
Yes, ma'am, I feel like you really have. We have a question in the chat box, I think.
Someone just typed good morning.
Yeah. Adina, do you have a question? You can ask. आप अपना mic on करके पूछ सकते हो.
I would love to hear your voice.
I hope you can hear us, Adina. You can go ahead with your question. If you're not comfortable speaking, then आप chat box में लिख सकते हो. Or ma'am, till then we'll tend to some other question. It's by Mehak from Chandigarh, and she's asking, so how has journalism changed since you started your career?
All right. So I'll tell you, I started my career in 2008. During that time, digital field was still expanding. So from then and now, in my when we launched Bachpan Ki Baat, I talked about how a particular copy should be looked in a 360-degree way. I told you, Nalin, remember? So now we can populate a copy with not just those words that describe what has happened, who has said what, what next, etc. Now we can populate a story or a copy or an article with a video, with a podcast, with photographs in them. So in a way, you get to see everything in a package. You have words, you have moving images, videos, you have photographs, you have some expert or some senior journalist talking about it, and we then can add it as a podcast. So now journalism has evolved in the sense that it can incorporate so many so many things in terms of how we can enrich a particular copy, how we can inform our readers in various ways rather than only words. Anything?
Yes, ma'am. We have a question. Dina has written a question in the chat box.
Yeah, so I'll take Adina's question. Kindly enlighten us on what are some of the don'ts regarding news headlines, and secondly, how can journalism take place without not much going out? Okay, very interesting. So the don'ts, like as a head of the editorial, the edit desk, I always tell my colleagues to focus on being very sharp and informative, so that your headline, depending on a particular copy, as I talked about, there are different kinds of copies. So one should be able to handle all kinds of copies. For example, if it's a spot, let's say there are bipoles going on in Punjab and West Bengal today. So let's say in Punjab, some candidate has won. So in that headline, we should look at it, since it's an election copy, we should also look at the person who they defeated, their opponent. So it's not just about one person. So you should have those kinds of elements which would, or you take your headline forward, and you should never have a very verbose or pack too many words. You should rather have one information than giving everything out in a headline. Your headlines shouldn't have abbreviations that are not really known to most people. So when I was learning the ropes, I was told that your copy should be so clear that a person reading in Timbuktu should also be able to relate to that particular headline, that particular copy. Then going on to the second part, how can journalism take place without not much going around? See, we have an example of the pandemic where most of us could not go out, but journalism was, the online space was open, right? So nowadays you can talk to people over video, you can call them up, you can interview people, and something else is television. So if you have seen a report on one television and the other television channel is also reporting the same, that means we have concurrence over that particular thing that has happened from two television channels. So on the digital space, I'm mostly talking about the digital space, Adina. So that is a concurrence that we tend to look. But journalism is all about mostly going out, talking to people, and being out in the field, as our reporters do. I hope I answered your question, Adina. Anything else, Nanil?
Yes, ma'am. We have a question from Nandini on YouTube. She's a class 12 student, and she's asking, I had a question about whether AI can actually replace real journalists in today's time. What's Meenakshi ma'am's take on this?
Very relevant and very topical question. See, AI can do a lot of things, but it is still learning, since it depends on machine learning, right? So in journalism, for the time being, humans are still relevant in many ways, because we are capable of thinking more than machines. So let's say that we are still relevant.
Yes, ma'am, totally agree. In fact, I would like to add, if you would ever read something written by ChatGPT or an AI tool, it'll be very monotonous as compared to how a real person would write it, and it's very easy to make out if it's written by some AI software or if it's written by some person. So yes, ma'am, your point totally stands out there. Ma'am, I'm so sorry to interrupt the flow of the questions that people asking. I actually had a question myself.
Sure.
So, ma'am, I wanted to ask that since we're talking about the journalism field, and it, people do sort of have this stereotype that journalist hona is like, being a TV anchor or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I personally, like, I'm pursuing my bachelor's in journalism mass communication. If I ever tell some layman, like Arnab Goswami or something, they do start naming journalists, like very popular journalists that you see on the TV screen. So, I would want to ask that apart from very, traditional journalism, there's a reporter, we also have, the Indian Information Services. So, ma'am, could you please, guide me if I were to go into that field, or if I, wanted to basically try out that aspect of journalism as well. So I wanted to know your take on that.
You're very right. Everyone wants to be as a star journalist. Everyone wants to be on TV because that's where you are visible, most visible. Here I would like to add a point, since I am from a legacy media house. Our journalism is all about making an impact. So when we publish a story, an article in the newspaper or on our website, it makes the same amount of impact as anyone on, as much as let's say a star reporter. So yes, visibility is one thing, and then another thing is how you are impacting lives. I strongly believe that journalists have that upper hand of kind of putting people in perspective, giving people perspective, helping them think in a particular way or not think in a particular way. So doesn't matter if you choose television journalism, print journalism, digital journalism. If you can make your mark, you can make your mark anywhere on all platform of any kind of journalism. Coming to your information, Indian Information Services, I know someone, a colleague at Reuters, who's now with the Information Services, but you have to take an exam, I think through UPSC, and then go about it. I will get back on that. This is the only information that I have for you right now. I can get back on that.
All right. Thank you for that insight, ma'am. We have a question from Vaishnavi. Basically, so Vaishnavi is asking, have you ever faced rejection? Have you ever gotten a story rejected? And have you ever rejected a story? And how has that been like for you?
I haven't ever been rejected in terms of what we call story pitches. I am mostly a behind desk person. Yeah, I have rejected copies in terms of, while I'm editing a particular copy, I've asked a reporter to kind of whether we can change what we call the peg of the story on how we are going to do the reporting. And ask for more information, or rejected in the sense, I wouldn't say rejected, but I would say that I've asked reporters to rewrite their copies so that we have more information, so that the copy is better in terms of what we are trying to say throughout a story. I'll give you an example from today. Our Supreme Court journalist sent a copy on. If you guys are reading the news, the actor Kamal Hassan's film, The Thug Life, is kind of facing some opposition in Karnataka, right? So the Supreme Court has now directed the Karnataka government to ensure that the film is released, and made some observations as well. So I asked the reporter whether I could change the headline, change the lead of the copy. That's the first paragraph of the copy that I talked about earlier. The lead of the copy, to bring in what the Supreme Court actually told the Karnataka government, because that has more impact than giving out an observation. So what I did, I asked my reporter whether I can change the lead a bit and peg it on what the court told the government, and add the observation along with it. So it wasn't, the first paragraph wasn't just about what the court was, the honorable court was observing. It was also what the honorable court ordered the government, the state government, to do. So I wouldn't say reject. I have rejected stories, but I have kind of suggested in ways to change the tone of the copy, the way we edit a copy. And it's always between a reporter and an editor, the person who's looking at the copy. So it's a two-way dialogue. I can't by myself change anything. So I will talk to a reporter. I'll try and say that I think this is what we should be doing. And if you think I can go ahead, if the reporter says that, yes, let's do it this way, then we kind of go ahead with changing the headline, the peg of the copy, the lead of the copy, etc. Yeah.
Okay. That does sound like a tedious process, but then again, journalism demands accuracy and fairness. So
Exactly.
definitely changes are necessary, ma'am. We have another question from Vaibhav. So Vaibhav is asking that there's this tendency of some journalists to push propaganda that suits their agenda to manipulate public opinion, and that has become increasingly relevant. How can this be controlled? And should this be controlled?
I would say no. It's on to a reader to think. There are n numbers of newspapers, of television channels, and I will not mince words. There are as many ideas as well. So one should be, as a reader, able to go through various news reports or various channels, podcasts, since there are podcasters as well who are journalists as well, in a sense. It's I would shift the focus on the reader here. You parse through, you see what is relevant, how it is being disseminated, and then arrive at a conclusion whether it's propaganda or it's the truth, or whether I can grab this piece of news or not. So I would say that, rather than, see, everyone is entitled to their opinion, their points of view, their kind of journalism. It's up to who consume news to parse through all of that.
Okay, actually, ma'am, I would want to, add in to that. So you talked about it basically depends on the people who are basically reading the news or listen to the news. So, ma'am, considering that there are multiple theories, like we have the hypodermic needle theory, and we have the uses and gratification theory that talks about an active and a passive audience, right? So, ma'am, particularly considering India's case and India's scenario and the type of audience that we have here, don't you think the media has a greater role to play with the information that is passed on to people than the people who are actually receiving or grasping the news?
Exactly, you have a point there. It's a two-way street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So given the socioeconomic background, and now that everyone has a smartphone, people can get information quickly. That also kind of, we also have to keep that in mind. See, there will be, it's not just today's age. There have been propaganda or various kinds of journalism throughout the history of journalism, right? So you have to also see what where is that information coming from, what basis has it been gleaned from, various sources that people have used in their reporting. Yes, it's like a a circle. I would rather call it a two-way street where we are reporting something we think is important, and the reader is also particularly reading those news copies and trying to figure out how to go about it. We can only do as much. We can, for example, let's say propaganda. We can push a particular propaganda, or we don't push a particular propaganda. So it's like a middle path that everyone has to choose.
Mm-hmm. It's ironic you talked about social media, because our next question has to do something with that. And I feel like this is probably the last or second last question that we'll take since we're running short on time. So this one's from Pranshu from Gujarat, and she's asking that in this day of social media and digital age, how do we verify what's true and what's not in this overwhelming flow of information?
Very good question. Since we are bombarded with all sorts of news reports from all sorts of sources, right? So what one can do is see where the information is coming from. For example, let's talk about the recent the plane accident that happened in Ahmedabad. I could see that information was coming in quick and fast. There were information about how many people had died, how many people were on the ground, were on the plane, etc. So see, the thing is that how we first say that a plane accident has happened is, you should see whether a particular news channel has talked to, or anyone for that matter, whoever is disseminating information, has talked to the police, talked to fire services, talked to authorities who are on the ground dealing with that tragedy. And then the airlines that is involved, they have a passenger manifest that says that these many people were on board and these many people did actually took the flight. So there we can, in a way, see how many people were actually there on board, how many crew members were there on board, then what has actually happened, where has the plane crashed, what is then the rescue and rescue services are doing. You should be able to, in a particular piece of information, see whether those people have talked to authorities. And even when an incident is unfolding, there'll be information which you might think is contradictory. That's because when incidents in like the plane accident, information come by and by and by. So you should always see whether authorities have been approached in such cases. You be it a police officer or fire services officer, let's say a NDRF or a state SDRF officials who are involved in that particular operation. So you should look at authorities first and then see where that information is coming from.
Yeah, so basically the source, you should look for the source rather than the distributors, the information.
Yes.
Yeah, rather I would want to add that since Pranshu talked about social media, so we have social media platforms that do provide us with community notes or fact verifications. So of course, before blindly reposting a story or a post, it's always better to look at the comments or the fact verification section or the community section as well. So I think we're pretty much done with the Q&A. Feel like ma'am has really tired herself out here. Uh, yeah, so over to you, Shivangi. You can take over now.
Okay, as we are ending the session, I guess now. So I just want everyone to remember something, which is journalists don't really wait for permission to speak. They observe, they question, and they write. You don't need a press card to be one. You just need your eyes open and your heart honest to be a journalist. So I think everyone who is here, like, they should just go write that article, speak up, and maybe your article will reach people like more than you have imagined. And I'm really excited to read all of their stories. I just wanted to say that. Anything you wanted to say, ma'am?
Yes, I would really like if everyone sends their headlines, their copies. It'll be really interesting to see what and how they have benefited from this session and how they can go about if they were to choose journalism as their career.
The headlines are going to be like really interesting, I feel like now. And I can't wait. Like, yeah. Well, I think we should end the session. Right. Chalo.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Nalin, Shivangi.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ma'am.
everyone, for participating in the session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.